Today, Kurt and I will be taking a look at Psalm 110, which has the designation of being the psalm most used in the New Testament. So we invite you to come back and spend some time with us pondering Psalm 110.
I like that, Dave. That's exciting.
It just, I don't know. It just hit. All right. I want it exactly like that, except good.
Bigger. I want bigger.
Oh, you know what? I think you're right.
Thank goodness. We'll show them.
We're off that. Yeah.
You do push up like a girl. Yeah. You not a man. You do push up like a girl. Okay. Thank you, Sensei.
Well, we're glad we stuck around through all of that because we're taking a look at Psalm 110 today. It's a very short psalm. If I remember correctly, it's like 7 verses. Mm-hmm. But as I said in the beginning, it's the psalm that's used most in the New Testament. So I'm here with my good friend, Kurt Austin.
Hey, David Mullins.
Hey, good to see you, Kurt.
I know. I love hanging out with you.
I know. It's been, and I'm looking at our little clock. We've been doing this for an hour and a half, and now we're getting around to actually talking about the psalm.
Now let's talk about the meat and bones of why we're on this planet.
Yes, indeed. So, Kurt, you've been taking a look at this psalm over time, and I don't know, what were your first impressions of Psalm 110?
Quite the military marching orders there.
Yeah, it really was.
You know, I did. This is one of the few times where I've read a commentary about this to try and better understand it, its context and things. And so it made sense when you started putting it into that context of the inauguration. Is inauguration the right word, of a king?
Yes.
Yeah. So you know that this could be something that was used in that time period where it was like, all right, as the king comes in, this is, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand. And then it kind of makes sense. But you also have to look at this from a heavenly perspective, right?
Indeed.
Which is why it ends up being used so much in the New Testament, because of that. Could it be about David? Could it be about Solomon? Or could it, in fact, be about Jesus Christ?
And I think that's what the New Testament is pointing to.
Yeah.
The dream of the Israels is that one day there would be a king that would come in that would establish God's kingdom on earth. And David, it's interesting that David was basically the second king, but there were no others that even reached, to where he was. Everything after David was kind of downhill. And you had some kings that were good, but not matching up the dream that they had of this this Messiah that would come and put things back to rights.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the folks in the New Testament took a look and they said, this is really talking about one who was to come, and that one, Jesus, has arrived.
Yeah, and I really liked verse 1 especially. And oddly enough, verse 7 was just interesting to think about. But verse 1, where he's talking about then, sit in the place of honor at my right hand until I humble your enemies.
Yeah.
If God is telling that to Jesus, then if the Father is saying that to the Son, it's kind of a neat, not just a power dimension, but a relational dimension that I liked. That I like to think about is like, hey, have a seat. I'll take care of everything from here, but we're going to get things set to rights, as they say.
Yeah, and it might be common knowledge, maybe it isn't, that the right hand was considered the place of honor and the place of power. So that's what God's saying. Sit at my right hand, this place of power, this place of honor.
Mm-hmm.
And I will work through you to establish what I want to happen. And I think right there is verse 1 is where we're seeing that.
Yeah.
The Lord will extend your powerful kingdom from Jerusalem. Well, for the psalmist, was he thinking about the Messiah? Perhaps. Was he thinking about the king that was being inaugurated? Probably. Because again, in that day, it was all about extending the kingdom. And so they saw the kingdom beginning in Jerusalem and then heading out from there. And the only way you could do that is through conquering others.
So it's interesting that Jesus' final words to the apostles, his disciples, was to, in Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria, and all the ends of the earth. It's kind of that extension of that kingdom charge that Jesus leaves at his disciples' feet.
And that's a great insight, because maybe that is a reference back to Psalm 110 that no one has ever caught until today.
Oh my gosh, where do I get that copyrighted?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah. And the war, again, it's about conquering the kingdoms that are not the kingdom of Israel. So, I mean, we could look at it as our role is to go to war, but it might not look like the war of old. It might be warring against mindsets, oppression, systemic, and right now we're familiar with using the term systemic racism, but systemic isms, where that's consumerism, ageism,
sexism,
racism, sexism, all that. That we are at war, and Paul talks about this in Ephesians 6. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, I like that, Dave. This helps me a lot, because I'm reading through this thinking of the King David. Let's just use him as an example, and the desire to. As a matter of fact, when King David gets in trouble with Bathsheba, it's in the spring when kings go out to war.
Yes.
And he's still sitting at home when he should have been out doing his thing there. And
his problem, they didn't have Netflix then, because otherwise he would have been sitting at home watching Netflix.
That's right.
But anyway,
it could have saved him.
It could have.
But so when you go out to war, then my head goes to that in the spring when kings went out to war. Whereas in fact, when Christ goes out to war, and this is, let's say it's God speaking to Jesus, when you go out to war and you begin to fight against all of these injustices that exist, these systemic problems, and your people will serve you willingly. Imagine that. That's really cool. That is really neat to think that we in fact are going out and we are going to serve right beside and serve you, not fight for you. We're going to serve Christ.
Yes.
By going to war with him. You are arrayed in holy garments, and your strength will be renewed each day like the morning dew. I
know, strength being renewed. And the question that I hear in this passage right here is, how is my strength renewed? How can my strength be renewed each day like the morning dew?
I love this now. I didn't love this psalm so much.
I kind of took that when I was talking about something else, and I said I really like that, and you said, really?
I came away with it thinking of war, and that we were supposed to glorify that. But when we realize we're fighting the forces of evil, it's like the Chronicles of Narnia. Right? They're not fighting actual ogres and lions and cheetahs and polar bears. They're fighting these symbols of evil.
Yeah.
In the time. And if we took this seriously, Psalm 110, as a call for the Messiah and for his followers to fight tooth and nail for or against those evil forces, boy, that's quite a charge on us. That's a charge on us. But if we say, where he says, until I humble those enemies, making them footstools. So let's keep going. This is beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, and this is kind of where I struggle a little bit. The Lord has taken an oath and will not break his vow. You are a priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. Now,
it's Melchizedek.
I've already heard. Well, it's probably Melchizedek.
I'll be right back. You keep going. You keep talking.
Well, this is weird. Oh, he's going to find his. Oh my goodness, he cannot hear me, and I know what he's doing. He's looking for the pronunciation. But Melchizedek, perhaps. He's looking for his pronunciation book, and he got me this book because he continues to say that I pronounce biblical names wrong, and that's why he can't go into Applebee's anymore.
I knew. I just knew.
I know you're looking it up.
Book. Yep.
Yeah, you're looking it up.
Melchich. Melch. Melchizedek. So it's Mel, K-I-Z,
Melchizedek.
Dek, D-E-K.
Yeah.
So Melchizedek. And it's
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek. Actually, it'd be Melchizedek.
Okay. Is it really worth it?
Well, I mean, we can all learn something.
Well, that's true.
Melchizedek.
So there we go. But anyway, pronunciation aside,
You're welcome, by the way.
Did I say thank you? Oh, yeah. Anyway, there's just very little in the Bible about him, a couple of verses, and one just has Abraham going and paying him 10% as like a tithe. And so he's some sort of priest. We don't know exactly his role. But nevertheless, what this is indicating is the king, especially David, is also a priest. And there's an understanding of the three roles of prophet, priest, and king. And those are three things that Jesus fulfilled. So, but where my disconnect happened was when it says, the Lord stands at your right hand to protect you. He will strike down. And the he, not sure who it's referring to. You've got a couple of options. It's referring to the Lord, or it's referring to the king. It seems like it would be referring to the Lord, except that means that verse 7 is a little bit weird, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, that is true. It would shift back. So let's say 5 and 6 are the he's are all reference to God. All right, God will stand by. Let's say not about David. Let's say it goes back to being about Jesus. God stands at Jesus' right hand to protect Jesus. God will strike down the many kings when God's anger erupts.
Yeah, I think we need to say the king instead of Jesus, because when this was written, they probably didn't have Jesus in mind.
Okay, all right.
It's a fair shadow. It's a shadow of what's to come. But when the person's writing it, they are probably thinking about that king role that they believe that every king is going to fulfill, but none of the kings did until Jesus arrived. But anyway.
So if you've got God will punish the nations and fill their lands. God will shatter heads over all the earth. But then there's this shift. So God then is also refreshing himself, really, from brooks along the way.
Yeah, see, and that's why if you look at it the other way, the Lord stands at the king's right hand to protect you. The king will strike down many kings when his anger erupts. He will punish the nations, fill their lands with corpses. The king will shatter heads over the whole earth. See, I'm so excited to get to the last verse that I'm just stumbling through the rest, and you have troubles with Melchizedek.
Not anymore.
But the king himself will be refreshed from brooks along the way. He will be victorious.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I tend to like that reading. Yeah. But then, as you said earlier, that verse 7, the king himself will be refreshed from brooks. Doesn't say what the brooks are, but there's something that refreshes the king, even in the midst of all this shattering of heads and filling of corpses.
So in verses 5 and 6, I have a vision of chaos, of this fast pursuit of the enemy.
Yes.
And in verse 7, I have this slow. It's not like a brook is a babbling little stream, right? It's something that's very gentle. It's not like it's a river, that
Right.
they've had to ford to get to the enemy or anything. It's like something that's just quietly flowing through the woods.
Yeah.
And I get this. It's almost like there's this sense that you don't have to rush. Take your time. Take your time. As a king, you will be able just to refresh yourself and take your time because God is on your side. And so, you don't have to push the battle forward. You simply have to relax.
Yeah, I like that, because how many of us feel like it's all on our shoulders?
Yes.
Like
And especially, yes.
We have, if it's going to, what's the saying? If it's going to be, it's up to
me.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah, you. If it's going to be. Yeah, it's up to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas if we say, well, if it's going to be, then it's up to God. And I'm going to do
different.
what God wants me to do, but I'm going to be able to be refreshed along the way. God's going to take care of me on both sides of that. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, you won me over. 110. It's a winner. It goes in the winner column on my whiteboard. I'm keeping track of all of these winners and losers of the Psalms.
Really?
No.
Okay. Oh no. Okay.
But
how about this? How about this?
Good to do. And you started an Excel spreadsheet, didn't you? I know what you did. But he himself will be refreshed from books along the way. He will be victorious. Psalm 110:7. Nice, Dave.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at your technological expertise.
Well, I thought, it might be, we'll just put it down there as because I think we're going to be ending on this. Because I know.
The last verse of the
well, that's true.
Psalm.
So I guess it's a good place to end when it's over. But I hope that people, find some hope in this, that, it's not really up to us, that the Lord is on our side. It says that the Lord stands at, oh, wow. I just saw something.
See, now you're not going to end with Psalm 110, verse 7.
No. Oh, I need to.
What are we looking at here?
Yeah, I'll show you here. I need to. I stopped the slideshow for a reason. Where's the Lord standing?
Oh my gosh, Dave, I never saw that.
Boom, I didn't either.
All right, so we've got to unpack that. It's going to push us back a little time. Wow. I suppose we could cut out me looking for a book or something like that if we want to save time. Yeah. So verse 1 is?
Well, I need to go back over to that screen. Now here's the danger. The danger is we have not looked this up. This is something that just popped into our mind, so it might be completely heretical.
We're just pondering, Dave. There's a disclaimer in the very name.
Although one of the things to notice here is the word Lord, and you notice it is in a different font. It's all caps, which signifies something.
Yes.
Oh, this one in verse 5 is not. So it is talking about the king.
Stands at God's right side.
Yes.
Yeah. The Lord stands at God's right hand.
No, the king stands at my right hand. Man, there's some significance there, though. Especially if you think about this in messianic terms.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is verses 5 and 6. So is it then, let's say in messianic terms, well, let's say it's David, King David.
Okay.
King David stands at your right hand to protect you.
Yeah. I mean, it was one of the roles of the kings. It was one of the roles.
Yeah. Then you go, King David will strike down many kings. King David will punish the nation. And he himself will be refreshed from brooks along the way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to take some pondering. Because again, since it wasn't in all caps, it's not talking about God.
Yeah.
It's talking about the Lord said to my Lord. So he's my Lord, my king, but he's also going to be at my right hand, which means, that's the place of honor. That's the place of power, but he's there to protect. And that's what the king was supposed to do for his people. Many times did not use that for his own purposes. But you know what? Jesus is that ultimate king. And he protects us. He guides and leads us if we choose to allow him to. And if we do, then we will experience, I think, the same thing the King does. We will be refreshed.
I like this. I heard something this last week or the week before maybe, and I've still been kind of thinking about it. But that idea that sometimes we have to look at the principle that lies beyond the passage.
Okay, yeah.
And the premise of this particular psalm has a pretty powerful principle to it.
Yes.
So if you don't like the fact that heads are being broken, although I will say when I was a kid, Mom used to knock our heads together occasionally.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Yeah, and so, but you have this this principle that in fact Christ will stand beside us.
Yes.
And God will make sure that the enemies end up being a footstool under Christ's feet.
Yeah.
And if you want to look at the principle of what it is we're fighting against, Paul then says it's not flesh and blood.
Right.
It's just not. And so
principalities and powers and isms. He doesn't say isms, but
he would have if it had been, he would have really done well if he'd coined that. I mean, I think he could have been somebody.
Yeah.
But what a great because sometimes I think the isms just seem to be winning all the time.
Well, and here's the thing, because we allow them to win. Now, how much do we miss out on when we take matters into our own hands? When we believe if it's going to be, it's up to me.
Yeah.
When we feel that we're on our own, when we think that we know the best way forward and what it means to fix something or make something better, versus allowing the Lord to be the one.
Yeah.
Because he is leading and guiding us and he's protecting us.
That's just great. I mean, this is one of those examples where when you sit down and you start to read this, I've read this every day this week.
Yeah.
And I didn't come away with all of these things because, how much of it did it pop up as we were going through it today? And we may not be right, but man, if we're encouraged by the principle behind this passage, that God is there and God is in charge of all of it, man, then that changes the way I live today.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for being part of this and for, for being there. And I want to thank everyone who might happen upon this, that you would truly be refreshed by those brooks that God is placing along your way.
Yeah. Leave a note in the chat and we will talk to you next week.
We would love to hear from you.
All right. We'll talk to you then. He was going, see, like if I take your hand and I squeeze right here, and you'd go, ow, and he wouldn't let go. He'd go, see, that hurt very much. What? See, so I push. Here, let me show you the strength of my toe. No kidding. I show you strength of my toe. Ow!
Come here. I will hurt you.
He would. He goes,
I want to hurt you.
If I do this, then you go, oh, yes, that's right. That's it. Well, it's so effective. That's why we do that. Whoa! The guy was always hurt the new guy, whoever the new guy was.
But yeah,
and I was the new guy.
Hand, for a long time. Your hand, it's like baby. It's like little baby.
So I'm doing push-ups and I'm doing them on my knees because that was when I weighed 40 pounds more than I weigh now.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just all I could do to get my body off the ground. He went, you do push-up like a girl. I said, yeah. You're not a man. You do push up like a girl. Okay. Thank you, Sensei. Thank you.
How much am I paying you?
That's exactly right. Thank you for the pajamas, but now I'm going to leave.